Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Savage and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
This is Stress-Free Living. Ray Savage with you, along with Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And we are coming your way today on the normal different channels that we have. Of course, in the Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio, we're at WINT 101.5 FM, 1330 AM. The entire world can listen to us at wintradio.com. You can pick us up also on the TuneIn app for that purpose. And for our Zoom audience, for people who would actually like to see our faces and show their faces to us and interact on the commercial breaks, you can also pick us up on the Zoom network. And for that specific address, please visit wintradio.com and you can click the link and join us, as we do have some guests with us today, some special guests that we will be joining in. Dylan is with us here, one of our regular friends, and we will ask him to interact today with us in our conversation. So Ratanjit, we talked with a group of people that were on our Zoom audience a couple weeks ago, and one of them suggested a particular topic that you and I both liked, and that is about passivity. A lot of people think that being passive is virtuous, that if you sit back and don't get too excited, don't get angry, don't take a lot of action, that might be the smart way of going, just to kind of let the world go by and not get angry and irritated with everything that's happening. On the other hand, maybe that's not what we're supposed to do. So the topic today is being passive a crime? So let's just start with that. What do you think? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for being passive?
Well, see, if you are awake, then the decision made whether you want to be passive or you want to be active is the right one. But unfortunately, most of us live in a coma. Although now when I say this, there are a lot of people, listeners, I say, Ratanjit, come on, I'm listening to you, I'm awake. I can see things, I can touch and feel. But really, we are preoccupied constantly in our life. And we end up not 100% being alive, 100% being in present. To be active, you have to be in the present. If you are not in the present, then you cannot be active.
Are you merging two different topics though? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but is being in the present, living present, you can still also be passive living in the present. I mean,
that decision is correct decision to be passive. So first of all, what I'm saying is, it is not either right or wrong to be passive. It depends on the situation. But the right decision depends on whether you are in the present. So we end up making the erroneous decision. When we should be active, we end up being passive. When we should be passive, we end up being active. And we create more problems than we solve problems.
All right, so I have to take a step back because I'm confused. I have to try to clarify this for me, and in the process, hopefully clarify it for our audience too. What you're saying is that we have to make, I believe what you're saying is that we have to make a conscious decision to say that I I want to pay attention. I want to be involved. I want to live in the moment and grasp everything that it has and do what I'm supposed to do. And then once I've made that decision, so I'm not in a coma, to use your terminology, now I can choose if I want to be active or passive. And at that point, you're suggesting that passivity is better. Is that?
No, I'm not saying
right?
passivity is better or being active is better. It depends on the situation. See,
Okay.
our purpose of life never changes. Our purpose of life is to add the highest value. So we have to ask this question: by being involved at this point in this or interfering somebody's activity, stopping that person from doing that what he is or she is doing, am I adding the highest value? That question will decide whether you should be active or you should be passive.
Okay, so we know what we're going to talk about for the second half, but let's take that first half first, because you threw that kind of in on me and I didn't expect that. So let's before you can even make that decision, is it right to be active or passive, we have to wake up out of our coma, right? So let's talk about that a little bit, because you're right, that might offend some people. They might say that, you know, we're especially in today's political world, where people seem to be a little bit more, I don't know what the right word is, a little more concerned about hurting people's feelings. Maybe we're hurting people's feelings with that by saying you're in a coma, you're not awake. And we don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings this morning. But the reality is that some of us do not pay attention. It's like, I don't know how many times, Ratanjit, you have driven someplace, but I find I do it way too many times where I'll end up at the office, or I'll end up at a store or someplace that I've gone to, and I don't remember even driving there.
Yes.
Okay. I end up in the parking lot and I get out of the car and I'm saying, gee, did I go through red lights on the way here? I don't even remember the turns, and did I exceed the speed limit? I can't even remember what I did because I was on autopilot.
Yes.
And it's pretty scary, really, when that happens, when you have that reality that you did something as important as driving, even on the freeway. Sometime I'm on a highway and so I know I'm going fast, and yet I don't remember the whole process.
Right.
Sometimes the analogy is we live our life that way, right?
Yes. Well, we are preoccupied, Ray. That is always the case. And that's why we are not paying 100% attention to anywhere we are. When we listen to our children, we are thinking of work or something else. When we are having a conversation with our loved one, we are again, and many times your spouse will say, "Are you listening to me?" How many times that has happened?
Right. And we realize we probably aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happens to us. It's not anything wrong or right. See, we are creatures of habits. And we have developed this habit to preoccupy this monkey which is sitting in our head. The constantly chattering monkey, it is constantly thinking of something or other. And so while you are present or in a meeting or in a business meeting, and that is why when you're listening to a lecture, they say if you are paying full attention, you may get only 20%. What happened to the 80%? Because our mind was not fully engaged.
I was attending a conference this past week, and two statistics that they gave me at this conference were just so mind-blowing. One is that, and I've heard this one before, but it's gotten lower. We have 7 seconds now to get somebody's attention. 7 seconds. If they don't think that this is worthwhile within 7 seconds, they won't stick around for any more. 7 seconds.
So,
And
so
then
we lost everybody so this
Yeah.
morning, huh?
And then the other one is 9 minutes is the average attention span now, even if they want to be engaged, even if people want to hear what you're talking about, 9 minutes is the average time that people want to give you. And after 9 minutes, very good chance that even if they like it, even if they agree with you, they're not going to listen any more than 9 minutes. 7 seconds and 9 minutes are the two going numbers now. I'd like to bring Dylan Desai, and Dylan is very much in the corporate world, business world, and I wanted to throw those two numbers by him because of this concept of waking up and paying attention and being real. What do you think of those statistics, Dylan?
Yeah, it's funny as you were speaking and saying the 7 seconds metric. I was just thinking back to a presentation I had to do in front of an executive not too long ago, and I just had this instant visual of that 7 seconds going by, and sort of someone picking up a phone in a meeting and starting to look at their messages, and we have so many distractions. Easy to pick up distractions that we didn't have many years ago, and I think that has led to some of those so the reduction in time that you have to get someone's attention. But I also think I think I've mentioned this in the previous shows, which is I've come out of this last year less of being less a cynic and more of an optimist, actually, because I think that this last year really has, at least again, caused me and others around me to pause and look around and sort of wake up and realize that what we have been doing, Ray, to your point, kind of walking through life somewhat in a almost passive mode, not really being active and attentive to what's important to us. This last year has been a wake-up call for a lot of people, both on the work front, I think on the personal front. It's caused a lot of people to reevaluate where they're spending their time and what's important to us in life. So,
see, I think this idea of active and passive, it really is two parts. And Ratanjit, I'm glad you started with that with the show, because there's a conscientious decision if we want to be active or passive. But to your last point, Dylan, I don't know if we even get to that point of being able to make that decision, or if we are so much in a stupor, so much in a coma, that we don't even realize that we have that choice. I mean, and as I'm thinking this through more in my head here this moment, I think many times, even people who think that we're active and very aggressive in life, we are driving blindly. We are getting places without even realizing how we got there. We are having conversations without really in-depth understanding what we're talking about. The lack of engagement, the lack of compassion that we show. There are times that I'll have a conversation with somebody and I'll hang up and I'll say, I don't think I was compassionate enough over the situation that they had just shared with me, because I really wasn't awake to it. This does seem to be very easy for us to lose that 7 seconds of interest and then start thinking about our next phone call or whatever it might be.
Yeah, you see, another thing is that in life, this our mission to get more, become more successful, get more knowledge, more, we always feel like I'm going to miss something. So I go from one to another. This becomes a constant habit of ours. I'm trying to look for something better constantly. And where I am, I pay very quick attention and decide, okay, this is not going to give me any more, so let me go more further. So you're constantly in the mindset of not staying in one place, looking for better, looking for more. And that is what is driving that lack of attention, Ray.
You know, you always use the term, you already use it today, we're supposed to be adding the highest value, but don't you think that what we're always saying is what adds the highest value to us? I mean, when we're making these decisions, when we have a 7-second rule or a 9-minute rule, and I'm not going to pay attention, it's almost reversed, right? It's almost like, I don't think this adds value to me anymore. I'm not going to waste my time.
See, any success you see, a person who starts a business, they become passionate about that mission of that whether it's a product or a service which they offer. And they spend their entire time in that mode. That is why they are successful. So for success, you have to have patience to spend time to understand and comprehend every situation. So, but that is why we have in our society incredible amount of mediocrity. Excellence only happens when we spend time, quality time in one place to make it better. Otherwise, we'll remain mediocre, and a consequence of mediocrity is absolutely horrible because it wastes our talent, it wastes our creativity, it wastes our resources, and we are just running at a speed. You go from one place to another, you are in a hurry. And when you get there, then you wait. And then instead of there, you then open your telephone or something instead of, our thinking is completely missing, Ray. We don't think.
You know, it's ironic that the word passion is I'm not sure if it's a derivative or not, but I mean, it starts the same as the word passive. Now, I know a lot of words have a Latin origin or a Greek origin. I need to research that to see if those are in any way related in terms of the origin of the word, because they seem to be the opposite, don't they? I mean, if you're passive, you don't really have passion. You just sit back and watch. If you're passionate, just as you said, Ratanjit, you're very much involved in the moment. You're very much involved in whatever the project is. So that's a kind of a curious thing we got to check. But in my business, I'm in marketing, advertising, I do events, media. Passion is critical. If people don't have passion about the things that I'm involved with, it doesn't go anywhere. Let's go back to Dylan on that, because he's in a different environment. He's in an office mode, a big corporate world. Do you see much passion, Dylan, these days? Do you agree with Ratanjit? If you don't have that passion, even in that type of business, you're doomed?
You know, it's a mixed bag. That there's, to Ratanjit's point, there is a significant amount, in my opinion, of mediocrity in the corporate environment where people are just getting by. So they've come into a position, they know that they can get by with the knowledge and the skill set that they have. And you see this a lot with folks who jump from place to place and sort of, get by. But then there's also, what I've been impressed with is a sort of new generation of skilled workers, recent graduates coming in who seem to embrace the values or the mission of the business, and even, in a banking environment, serving the client, and are really passionate about the brand, about being there, about having a job. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. And I think, something that struck me that you said, Ray, about coming to the table with a view to what's in it for me versus trying to add the highest value for the other person. That's something that's very, very strong. I think it's something that, I think all of us struggle with, honestly.
Ratanjit, we need to go to a break. When we come back, let's talk about how we can ignite that passion and overcome that first of the two phases of this discussion, how we can awaken from our coma and how we can start paying attention to the world that's around us and want to. Because I think if we don't have that conscientious decision that we want to awake, it's very easy to live our whole life in that coma without ever venturing out into this exciting world that we live in. That'll be the challenge that we ask Ratanjit. How do we come out of our coma? This is Stress-Free Living. We will be back in just a moment. All right, so we are at break here for 2 quick minutes. Ratanjit, you okay with that question we come back with?
Sure.
Okay, good.
But I don't know whether I have the answer.
Oh, of course you have the answers. Yeah, of course, just connect. Just tune up that the ends of your mustache.
Yeah, my antenna has to be facing the right place.
I know, so you better play with those now. We have 90 seconds left.
Ray, did you notice the nice new glasses he's got?
I noticed they were different. Yes, I did notice. I should have commented on that. Yes, very nice.
So I'm looking at the world with the tainted glasses now.
Yeah.
They look good on you, brother. They look good.
And my Dylan's kids, they come to me and say, hey, Grandpa, you look, how do they say? Wise old man now.
They come to me and say that too. They say, as Papa, you're getting more and more gray hair. Thanks, guys. There's no filter on those two.
Well, that's the beauty of kids. They just,
yeah, yep.
Even if it hurts, they're just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
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 So so I'm a wise old man. Ray, you should listen to me.
Yes, I always listened to you when you were a wise young man.
Yeah, but now I have look and glasses. I can see things more clearly, right?
Clearly? Okay. I have my contacts. When I was on my trip, I broke one of my contacts, which is not a good thing. Oh, we're back. We are back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray. Dylan Desai with us also. And you can join us, of course, at wintradio.com anywhere around the world. Ratanjit, so for those that are just joining us here, we are talking, our topic today is being passive a crime. And you introduced the concept that said before we can even decide if we want to be passive or active, we have to awake from our coma, because many of us are maybe unintentionally kind of drifting through life and not paying attention to where we're going. So how do we awake ourselves? If we might be one of those people, and we probably are, at least some of our life we're spending not aware of the opportunities that are passing us by, not paying attention to the role that we were destined to fulfill. How do we wake up? How do we, starting in the morning when we arise from our bed, how do we say today's going to be the day that I'm going to pay attention and do what I was meant to be?
See, in life, what happens is, just like this pandemic, that suddenly people have been stopped in their track and they're rethinking. And suddenly the values are different. It says, gosh, I was running after this. This is less valuable than my relationship, my family, my this and that. So nature constantly gives us these bumps in life to wake us up from this coma. But because of the habit, right after that, look what happened after September 11, 9/11.
Right.
We were awakened, and for a while, people started to talk to each other and started to understand each other, and later on, it just went back to normal. So because of old habits, they don't really go away. We live by our habits. So that is why when you are on a drug habit, how much you try, you many times cannot correct it. You need professional help to change those habits. So if we want to change these habits of getting out of coma and being awake, we need some professional help, Ray. We need either a group of people who have decided, 4 friends decided, okay, we are going to remain awake. So they help each other to change these habits of being awake. And you mentioned a word in last part of the show, compassion. Compassion allows us to see and feel others' pains. But compassion, prerequisite of compassion is empathy. And empathy does not exist if I am part in separateness, if I am part in what is in it for me, I'm part in my ego, if I'm part in my pride. Empathy does not exist. Now it has been proven neurologically that to empathize, we use what we call as mirror neurons in our brain. They are reflective. But once our brain is part in ego or pride, what I'm proud of, then these mirror neuron do not give you, or activity is not there of the mirror neuron. So as a consequence, we will not have empathy, and as a consequence, we will not have compassion to be active to help somebody in a difficult situation. Means we have to get involved in that. You have to have empathy and compassion. And that only happens when we are awake.
But do you think the way you were presenting that, though, showing empathy, showing compassion, having empathy, getting involved in other people's problems, trying to help people, there is some pain involved in that. There is some outpouring of feelings within us and emotional difficulties and challenges that go along with that. Do you think that subconsciously we want to be in that coma? Do you think that it's easier for us to actually live in a comatose state than?
See, once you are in compassion mode, Ray, I immediately, it's like a internet connection with the other person's brain.
Right.
So you feel the pain that person is going through. And because of the pain now in you, you react, you like to help that person.
Well, theoretically, we do. That's the question I'm asking, okay? But you just said it. You said you feel pain. When you do get involved with people and you understand what they're going through and you have empathy, it's hard on us too. It is.
Yes.
It's tiring. It's fulfilling, but at the same time, it's also challenging for us.
Yes.
Do you think we are, in the beginning of the show, when you referred to it as being in a coma, I thought that we were being oblivious to life. We were just kind of just coasting. But now that I think it through and listen to you talk, I'm saying, is that really a conscious decision that we're making to be in that coma? Because it's safe, because it's easy. We don't want to feel those emotions. We don't want to get involved in people's lives. Do you think we're choosing to be comatose?
Well, see, it's not a question of choosing. If you don't have internet connection, so you don't get the message. You don't feel the pain. If the pain is felt, it is the pain which you feel motivates you to help others. And the pain is felt if you are in the empathy and compassion mode. And until that is there with you, because it is biologically connecting you to the other's pain, and you have to act.
Well, but do we want to act? That's what I'm saying. Do we, because we are so focused on ourselves, what's in it for me, is it easier for us to coast even through that first part of this question and say, no, I want to be in a coma?
Once you are in the pride and ego mode, yes, you are part in me.
Yeah.
So automatically, once you are in the grateful mode, you are not part in me. And you automatically open the door. But we have to get out of the ego and pride mode. And until we are able to do that, the medicine to move you from pride mode is gratefulness. When during the pandemic, when all the money in the world, all the influence in the world still couldn't save you, once you contracted the disease, you are at the mercy, and the whole world, the biggest nation, the most powerful nation, the richest nation on earth was brought to its knees. And suddenly nothing matters. So all our ego and pride went on one side, and we begin to realize how many things we have had, and we were never being grateful for those things. And once the gratefulness comes into our mind, then empathy and compassion automatically comes in.
I was going to say, Ray, to both your points, I think you mentioned this before in previous shows as well, is that over time, when we're born, we are very curious. And I think about my kids when they were born, everything is new. Everything is, a shiny new ball, right? Their attention and their curiosity is at its peak because their brain is untouched. But over the years, we become conditioned to think a certain way, to behave a certain way. And I think, to your point, Ray, whether it's a subconscious or conscious decision to pass through life in a passive way, it's a factor of conditioning. I think many people over many years become conditioned to just sort of, pass through life.
I'm trying to separate the two thoughts that we introduced at the beginning of the show. And let me just go back and share this recap with you guys to see if I'm way off base here today. But Ratanjit, the topic is being passive a crime? And I thought what we had settled up with is that before we can even evaluate our choice to be passive or our choice to be active in life, we have to come out of a coma. And the coma that I was thinking we were talking about was not a choice. The coma was just the default of how we lived our life, and now we have to overcome that default mode. Okay, so that's where I thought we were coming from. And then once we could overcome that default mode, now we can choose if we want to be active or passive. What I've changed my thought through the context of this show is that maybe we are choosing to be comatose. Okay, maybe that's not a default mode. Maybe that is a voluntary choice.
You're correct, Ray. We are choosing. We are forced to choose. You know why?
Why?
Because in this human body mode, the body is full of fear. It knows it is going to die. It needs food. It is full of greed. It thinks it's a separate entity, is full of ego and pride.
It doesn't want to feel pain too. I
Yeah,
think
it doesn't want pain too.
Yeah.
So if we have lived in this human body mode all these years, that is all we know. That's all there is to us. And as a consequence, we try to save this body. If I get involved, I'm going to get hurt. So we are all basically focused on this human body mode, whereas empathy, involvement, and all these good things come out of when we realize what enlivens us, the force which brings life in us is the real me. Body is only a vehicle carrying me. It's not the true me. And once that realization happens, we awaken. We are awakened. Otherwise, in the human body mode, you are remain in coma. It is only awakened when we are in the oneness mode.
But I just thought of an example of why some people may want to stay comatose. I had when I was a youngster, I had a beautiful German Shepherd. I loved this dog. He was such an incredible animal. I'm talking like I was 10 years old. He died. And I went through such pain of that loss for a dog that I says, I'm never going to have a dog again because I don't need to go through the pain of losing a dog because of that loss was so deep for me that it took me a long time to overcome it. And I says, I'd rather not have another dog than get so attached to a dog and have it die on me.
Yes.
Okay. But I did because my daughter wanted a dog. So we got her a dog. And when we lost that dog, then I felt that same pain again. And it just reinforced that I would have been better off, again, not having another dog. Okay. I'm thinking that that's a pretty good analogy to why people want to choose to be comatose, because it's kind of easier just to go through life not having to feel pain, not having to have these highs and lows and challenges, because if I can just be comatose and not pay attention, it actually is easier. So if this is making sense at all, this goes back to the question that I left you on the last break.
It's different, Ray, when you are losing a loved one or a dog which you love dearly, or a pet or a family member, or it is lost. But all those feeling of loss comes from human body mode. We are all connecting to ownership. The comfort a person or a dog gave you, that is what you are missing. I was in a meeting and I was lecturing that at the end of the audience, one person in his 70 comes to me and says, sir, you are saying all these great things, but I lost a 40-year-old son a year ago. And no matter what I do, how many religious places I go to, and anywhere I go to, I cannot let him come out of my mind. I'm always in pain. Can you help me? I said, your son, if you remember, if love coming out of son, and when you were giving him love is what is missing you. So to counter that, start adopting somebody and start spreading that love unconditionally to that person. Your pain will get reduced. So if your dog died and now instead of owning the dog, you went to dog shelters and tried to do something to these animals to make their life better, your pain would be less. So instead of coming in the human body mode, my possession, it is mine, when we try to get out of the human body mode and help others, you automatically become unknowingly into the oneness mode. You see connection with other people, and your involvement in life is not to make others better. All it is making you better. We don't even know how to be selfish, Ray. The best way to be selfish is to become unselfish.
Okay, I know that makes sense. I know that makes sense, but on the surface, it sounds a little crazy. I do think, and you know, I mean, just those words, you know, in order to be selfish, be unselfish. Or did you say in order to be unselfish, be selfish? Which way did you say that?
To be truly be selfish. So I want to take care of myself, my family, and me. It is very important to me.
Right.
The only way I can do that properly is if I become unselfish and take care of everybody around me. Then everybody automatically, I am in a mindset which makes me happy, in a mindset which makes me wholesome, a mindset which makes me connected to people. I'm not alone. The biggest pain in human life is being lonely. And loneliness does not come from lack of love around you. It always comes from lack of love within you.
So I think you have answered this first half of the question then. I think you've answered it, maybe a little indirectly, but I think when I said, do we choose to be comatose and how do we choose to not be? I think while it appears on the surface that that's the better way, that is the safer way of living in a coma, of not having pain and not having to go through all of those different feelings and challenges. I think you've just said that if we realize that we really in those modes are being alone, we are really separating ourselves from the world, and we're not giving a chance to show love and gratefulness and compassion and empathy and all those kind of things, that we're truly missing out on life if we choose to be in a coma.
Yes.
And so if we can make that reality in our brain to say, you know, do you really want to live? You could be fortunate enough to live 100 years. Maybe, you know, the divine will say, yes, you can live 100 years. But if we've lived 100 years in a coma, what was the point? And maybe that's the first answer to the first half of the question that says, how do we get out of the comatose mode? So if we've got that answered, then we have just a couple minutes when we come back from this break to say, now, how do we choose to be active once we're out of the coma? And it's taken us 47 minutes to get to this point. I hope we can wrap up the rest of this in just a couple. This is Stress Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, Dylan Desai with us today, too. We'll be back in just a moment. All right. This is an unusual show today.
I feel like you say that every week, Ray.
so maybe the unusual is the usual, right?
Yeah.
That could be.
Are we adding any value, or are we just jibber jabbering?
You know me. I mean, I come from a place where this is the best way for me to start my weekend. You know, the whole concept that we've just been discussing today, right? Whether you're awake or you're passive or active, anyone who's listening, I mean, you know, I think if I was just tuning in for the first time today, this is causing me to kind of shake my you know, assumptions and my preconceived notions awake. This is pretty deep.
It is. There's even an evolution right within this show. I mean, I thought that comatose state was an unconscious decision, and now I'm realizing that even that first half is a conscious decision. We're choosing to be comatose.
Yeah.
Okay. It isn't the analogy of driving someplace and not remembering. It's the choice that says I don't want to remember. I don't want to show compassion.
Yeah.
And that's pretty that's startling for me to realize that.
It's like if you have somebody gave me this iPhone, and I'm in the dark, but I did not know this has a
Flashlight?
flashlight,
Yeah.
and I cannot use. I'm sitting in the dark, and I'm going to, because of the dark, I can't see anything, and I'm going to die. So it's a matter of the fact that I don't know what I have in me.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray Sandwich with you today. Thank you so much for being with us. Wrapping up this topic about passivity and being passive. Is that a crime? Are we meant to be active in life? And we've taken this long to understand that we have a choice every single day, every single moment. Do we want to be involved? Do we want to be aware of what's going on around us? And maybe that's the first half of the show, was about awareness. Do we choose to be aware, or do we want to be oblivious to life? We've already come up with the decision that we really do need to be aware. We really should want to be, because there's so much value that we can add to this world, and there's so much that the value that the world can add to us. So let's assume we've made that choice. Ratanjit, help me now to say, why should we want to be involved in other people's lives now that we're aware of what's going on? Why is that the better choice than being safely serene, safely passive, being the guy that everybody, or the woman that everybody likes, because you never say anything too volatile that gets people angry with you? You never take any action that somebody could be upset with you for taking that action. You just live a very safe, passive life. Why is that not the way to go?
Well, see, Ray, in chemistry or in health, you hear about this free radical. In our human body, free radical, we want to diffuse the free radical because it is very aggressive and very corrosive. It wants to react to something. So it is, now when a free radical gets attached to something, it gets neutralized, it's happy. So we are like a free radical looking for happiness. We are looking for contentment. We are looking for, and we are looking through the window of our human body mode. And we are only looking at what is going to make me happy temporarily. Pleasures. We are in the pleasure hunting mode. But pleasures are experienced by our five senses. They have a limited window. If you're hungry, you are in pain. If a good food is available, if you eat too much, you are in pain again. So it doesn't matter how much money we make after getting million, you want to become a billionaire. After becoming billionaire, you want to become a trillionaire, because this race continues. So until we realize that if you ask a person on the deathbed at 90 some years or 100-year-old person, the thing they will not forget is the kindness which was practiced to them. They may forget all the other worldly things which happened to them. So ultimately, until we wake up and realize that I am not the human body, I am the power which enlivening the human body. And in that mode, my real satisfaction, my mission, my purpose is to be proactive to add the highest value, because that is where my true happiness, my complete fulfillment lies. Otherwise, if we are part in satisfying our five senses, that race never ends. And we are going to spend our entire life chasing falsehood. And that is what has happened to us. Our satisfaction, our complete joy only available to us when we make a difference, when we add value. And in that mode, that particular mode, we are operating from the enlivening power mode, the power which enlivens me, the real me, which is living in this human body with the five senses. So I have to also serve my human body. I'm not neglecting the human body, but I certainly am not run by the human body. The boss is not operating the human body. The servant in the human system is operating the boss.
So I heard exactly what you said, and again, I cannot disagree. But do you really have to be in that mode in order to be actively involved in life? I mean, even if you don't realize the oneness, and even if you don't realize that who the real us is, if we just set about helping people and making a positive difference in life, is that sustainable without the
And then
understanding
in
of
that
what
case, there you are only, if you help people in the human body mode, Ray,
right?
you are going to look for recognition. You are going to want somebody to recognize your effort. You want trophies and medals. And then you are going to be selective. You are going to help only your friends or only the people you think are good people. You are not going to help somebody you think is a criminal. You are not going to become unconditional value adding entity. In the human body mode, you are always going to remain selective. And that is where what we see in this world. US is a highly charitable place. $400 billion are given by charity. And 70% of that is given by ordinary people, not corporations. And so we are charitable human beings.
Mhm.
But we give to a select charity. We are conditional charitable people. And that is what is going to happen in the human body mode. And until we operate in the oneness mode, all are one, because everybody else's pain, whether I know that person or no, whether I have seen that person or no, is eventually going to affect me. That is how this whole universe is designed.
So does that make an effort in the human mode, does that make it unsustainable then? It would be like a fad. I'll be nice for a while, I'll help people for a while, but without that reality of who I really am, I won't be able to sustain that effort.
Yeah, you can't, because that is only fueled by trophies and medals. A lot of money is given when we blast our name on the building, or somebody gives me a certificate, or somebody honors me at a fundraising dinner, then I give money or I help people. That is what is going on. And it is accepted as a norm,
Right.
which is really the sickness of our society.
This has been a really interesting conversation for me. I have truly enjoyed it, because it's taking something that is the norm, and it's really looking deeper into it. I hope that our listeners, our audience has enjoyed it half as much as I have, just exploring the different concept, different perspective on being passive, being active, being in the coma world. I think it warrants additional conversation, and we will need to continue this topic at a deeper level. Ratanjit, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us. And Dylan, thank you for joining us too in the show. And wherever you may be, radio, internet, anywhere around the world, thank you for being with us so much. Remember, folks, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.